Howdy, folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. And tonight we got a great show for you. We're getting a little bit slow start, but never worry. The weather's good here, and it's just hot, so it makes me move a little bit slower. I'm not so good with the heat. I think it was 80 degrees today, or 82, or something like that. 75 now, and a beautiful day in the neighborhood. And welcome my co-host, David Knoll, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for showing up tonight.
Good evening, everyone, and as usual, we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator, and we continue to pray that each and every one of you will continue to learn how to accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, the wisdom, and the many blessings from the universe. And that's for real. Be the frequency you want to receive. So, in the meantime, I was going to introduce a story to you, but I'm having computer problems still. And I can't get this dadgum story to come up. So, but in the meantime, though, Robert's got some good stuff.
Absolutely. You just get your stuff all ready, and I'll take over the show and do my half. And hopefully, the time I get done, you will be ready to go. Pop in whenever you want, because it's good stuff tonight. We're going to be talking about tonight, right around the corner, is America's 250. But how did that affect the Native Americans? What happened in their world? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. With the 4th of July right around the corner, which is today's Saturday. Holy cow, Saturday. Yeah, just like, oh my. Anyway, I know I heard some firecrackers going off today. Anyway, we're going to talk about 1776, what was going on back then, but not the way it usually gets told. Most folks hear 1776, excuse my flubber there, and they think of Philadelphia. Powder, wigs, those stupid candles, parchment, men singing their names to the Declaration of Independence. And they think of liberty. Give me liberty or give me death. Remember that. They think of a new nation being born. Yes, give me liberty or give me death. Lucky, that one's up to you. Tell me who said that one. I know you know. And that is part of our story. But out beyond the cities and the seaports, beyond the speeches and the signatures, there was another world watching this revolution unfold. The Native nations, the Shawnee, the Cherokee, the Delaware, the Miami. Oh, and there's bunches of others too. The Iroquois Confederacy, which included a bunch of other tribes in there. As you know, we talked all about them. And many others whose homelands were already standing where this new country wanted to grow. As you know, they moved in and they would have fights, and the natives would move back and give them more land, and they would move back and give them more land. Well, for the colonists, independence meant freedom from Britain. But for the native nations, it raised a much harder question. If these colonies became their own country, what happens to us? That was a big question. I'm sure they sat around the campfire, smoking a peace pipe, looking at each other, telling tales and saying, someday, son, the world you know it will not be the same. Anyway, because the fight was never only about taxes and tea, out on the frontier, it was about land. And it wasn't about rivers. It was about hunting grounds, villages, cornfields, trails, treaties, and survival. Many native leaders looked at the American Revolution and saw danger coming. Britain had sometimes tried to slow down, but hey, the American settlers wanted to cross the mountains and claim the Ohio Valley and build cabins in Kentucky and turn native homelands into farms and towns. As we all know, they would go there, they would march in, they would battle, they'd burn their villages and burn their corn crops and, say, well, we'll put you on a reservation. How about that? Sound good? Yeah, you just burnt my house and my crops. I guess I got no choice. So what America said, when Americans said freedom. Native nations asked, freedom from whom? Tonight, we're going to walk the line between celebration and the consequences. We talk about the Ohio Valley, where the future of the West is already beginning to be fought over. And we'll talk about the Cherokee country in 1776, where towns were burned, as we were just talking about, while the new nations were declaring liberty. We'll be talking about the Hussein Confederacy and most powerful native political systems in North America, and how the revolutions, and we're going to do this straight, right from the get-go for all the information I found. Not to ruin the 4th of July, of course. Not to take away anybody's history, because it's all history. It's all already been done. But maybe you'll learn stuff. Remember, the man who repeats or doesn't learn history tends to repeat over and over again, or something like that. But to add to the part, we're going to let standing. Because history is bigger than one flag. And if we're going to talk about the birth of America, then we'll also have to talk about nations already here. The nations with leaders and laws and families and farms and councils and warriors, diplomats and homelands. Yeah. We're going to sit down by the fire and look back at 1776. So let's get our time travel on, put our time travel hats on, and away we go. We're going to look at the other side of 1776. And that's where our story begins. What do you think of that, David?
Oh, boy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. Oh, boy. This was the Americans were celebrating because they were getting, the flies are bad. It gets warm and then the flies get bad. That's the thing. The Americans were happy to be celebrating because they battled the British. They declared their independence. The states were independent. They were trying to form a nation. They had all those smart people like Benjamin Franklin, John Hamilton, George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, just to name a few. And they were writing up that Declaration of Independence and saying, hey, we're no longer going to be, controlled by the British rule.
Yeah, imagine, you're in one of those New England towns, Lexington, and the redcoats are coming. And you look down the street, and sure enough, there's a bunch of these, army dudes from England marching down with muskets and everything. And you're going, what the hell do they want? And they're like, don't forget the king. Don't forget your taxes. Y'all dumped a bunch of tea in the harbor. We still remember that, And the Americans were like, get out of here. Quite simply, they were like, get the fudge out of here. What are you doing here? This ain't your spot. You came in on a boat, got off over there, and, you're telling us, get out of here. So, and that, you got to stop and think about the way they, the way they thought. It wasn't just, the redcoats are here and we'll offer them some tea and stuff. No, they were killing the pioneers that came over. You will listen to King George or we'll do as I say, and they were like, ain't having it. We left over there to come over here to get away from that stuff, that tyranny. Folks say, oh, Donald Trump he's there's so much tyranny going on in the United States. Oh, please. Them folks back in the day knew what tyranny was. At the end of a musket.
Patrick Henry, thank you, Lucky. Give me liberty or give me death, said by Patrick Henry. I knew it was, I couldn't remember who said it exactly. I would
have got that one wrong.
Hamilton did the big signature on the Declaration, and Yes, Patrick Henry. And then he ended up dying later, didn't he? He did end up dying. But I guess they're all dead by now anyway.
But you know, also it was hard to stay alive back in them days.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was, see, I think sometimes we do get a little bit wrong because we think every one of the colonists was, pro-American, pro-colonies. There was a lot of people, though, that did support the British rule. Probably more of the wealthy. It was kind of like a Democrats, Republican kind of thing. There wasn't 100%, everybody for the British. It really wasn't. The taxes on the tea was actually very minimal. Hang on, I'll look this up. How much were the taxes on the tea that they threw over? How much you want? How much you think the taxes were?
Oh, I can't remember. I remember reading that, a bunch of them dressed up like Indians and went aboard and started throwing the tea over. And I was thinking myself, what would the Indians want with the tea and why would they throw it overboard? Wait a minute.
Oh, yeah.
The Indians might have thrown a bunch of other stuff over, but tea? Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm on a tangent again.
We, like I said, we think, oh my God, it must have been like 50% or, a huge amount. But the tax on tea, it says here, the tax on tea was 3 pence per pound. Basically 3 cents per pound, which established under the Townshend Revenue Act of 1767. This monetary amount was actually a reduction that made British tea cheaper than smuggled Dutch tea. Colonists really protested it and the taxation without representation. So basically, it was a cost war, just like we do with tariffs on things. We're going to tax it. Well, what is a tariff? A tariff is a tax, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yes, it's and it's to even up the prices, and that's what they did. They were trying to make the British tea cheaper, and the Dutch tea, that they were smuggling in more expensive. I mean, it was a price war on things, but 3 cents per pound. Well, you know how much tea how much tea does it take to make a pound? You know what I'm saying? That must have been an ungodly amount because I know what a tea bag weighs. It weighs nothing. They're light as a feather.
Yeah, well, they were compressing it into large bundles like cotton bales.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't disagree with that.
So there'd be several hundred pounds in a bale. So, but if at 100 pounds times 3 cents, is what, $30?
No,
or $3.
$3. Yeah, considering you're getting 100 pounds of tea. I mean, when you go to town, you buy a bunch of bags of tea and take it home. I bet you that tea doesn't weigh more than 2-3 ounces because it's so light, and you pay a hefty tax on that when you buy it.
Right.
See that I think there's something to be learned here is the fact that they were throwing the tea overboard for 3 cents a pound tax. But yet today we have taxes on everything. Your land is taxed. Your stuff is taxed. You go to the store, you pay, 6, 7, 8% tax on things at the store. And these guys were throwing tea overboard because it was a 3% tax. Well, what's wrong with us today? This is what I'm saying. We have to learn history. I mean, what percentage of your income is taxed? You know what I mean?
And we have to stop and we also have to stop and what it was no taxation without representation. So It wasn't so much the 3 cents, it was the taxation without representation. Every time they turn around, King George was, throwing something else at him. And they were like, cut it out already. We don't have any represent. You keep raising the price of stuff, and there's not one of us that's over there to wrangle the price or
well, the thing was, is the
what's
money
going on. So the no representation was a really big deal. That's like passing the SAVE Act right now. It's a really big deal. And no representation, was a really big deal.
Yeah, well, they're taking the tax money and they're sending it back to England and not investing it in the United States or in the colonies. The British weren't coming over and saying, we're going, well, all that tax money you paid, we're going to build you some new roads and we're going to build houses and, feed the poor and do all that. No, it's going back to King Richard in his coffers. So I can understand that. That I can understand. He's taking without giving anything back, and they're getting. It's a price war. It's all about money, people. It's again, will you buy the Dutch tea or are you going to buy the British tea? Are you going to, it's the thing. Well, we got to move on from here and get on with the Indian stuff.
Well, and let me bring up one other point before we move. Is that's what's going on now with the voting, and then in November we want representation for each of the states, and we want to make sure that we are properly represented. So the issue is there are people who feel that, like us in Georgia, that Ossoff guy's got to go, but and he's a Democrat, but we don't feel that he's given us the right representation because he's way to the left, and us folks down here in the South, we're a little bit more to the right. So, but we don't feel that we have been represented correctly. So we're having, we're voting. But so the issue back then was they couldn't even vote. They just were like, hey, we don't have any representation whatsoever. And you just raised the tax on the tea and blah, 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 blah. And so I don't, it wasn't so much the price, but it was absolutely about representation. I'm done.
Yeah, no, I think you said it well. I think it was well said. Of course, for the natives, they were trying to pick who they were going to represent themselves. I mean, they're moving in, and the British are promising the natives that they're going to put a hold on, the development of their lands. And we're not going to let the colonists move out too far. We're going to keep them, held back. You can keep your lands. We're going to do some trading. We're going to do this and that. A lot of promises, a lot of treaties made. So the revolution was a fight against the British rule. And for many native nations, it was a fight to keep land-hungry settlers, because that's where they wanted to go. I want fresh land. I want to go west and over the Appalachian Mountains and keep on moving. The American Revolution was not fought in Boston or New York and Philadelphia. It was played out in Ohio Valley, Kentucky, Great Lakes, Cherokee country, and the Hussein homelands. Or I must be saying that right. Haudenosaunee homelands. The Museum of the American Revolution notes that by the time of the Revolution, more than 80 native nations lived east of the Mississippi River. And they had to make difficult choices about territory and alliances. Again, like I said, the colonists were moving west. The British kept saying no, and the colonists kept moving west. Remember, the king had given lands to certain entrepreneurs to bring people over. We were talking about, they're just sailing over, but most of the people did sail over. They were not, native to this land. They moved here on, consignment. They paid to come here. And then they were like debtors or whatever. They had to work off their thing. They were given plots of land, or were given jobs that they had to do for so many years. And then they became free men, or vice versa, or whatever. and the big landowners owned, huge tracts of land that they were trying to develop, like especially like where you are in Georgia. There, that was huge tracts of land divided up amongst wealthy English, I would say, businessmen, right?
Yeah. And we still
And
have out of towners. There's a place just upriver from me, a half a mile. There was a 500-acre plot that was owned by a couple of Germans, and they bought it up for the timber rights, waited a few years, and now about 2 years ago, they went in and cleared out all the trees. They did plant right away new trees, but that was owned by Germans. So, yep, it happens right here.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Still to this day, So, again, the native nations, they had a hard choice. They did not enter the Revolutionary War because they loved Britain or hated the Americans. They were just trying to make strategic choices. And which bad apple is the best bad apple to pick from? The colonists want to, come in here and settle, and the British want to stop settler expansion. But the Americans, could they be trusted? And and then again, if you were a neutral party between the bunch, could that protect your village? Who do you want to, and what side would respect the native lands? Well, I think neither side eventually. You're going to use your neutral guy, the natives. Like the British did that a lot. Here, come fight with us and we'll give you stuff. And, now they got a bunch of fighting troops. The Americans, some of the natives fought with the Americans too. But it was a problem. The problem was that many native nations saw the British as a lesser danger because the crown had at least tried to limit Western settlement at the proclamation of 1763, while the American settlers kept pushing into native country, especially the Ohio Valley, which was already exploding, because that's where the good farmland was. And just before 1776, there was Lord Dunmore's War in 1774 as a conflict between Virginia, the militia there, and the Allied native fighters led by the Shawnee. Can I say that right? Shawnee chief, as we talked about many a times, Cornstalk along the Ohio River. That was a big battle. Not so good.
Let's also think about this. I just had a moment. But it wasn't like there was 1 million people.
No.
They talk about this expansion, but they're talking about 1,000 people. They're talking like a boatload of people that just came over and they all decided we want to go west. So, but those 1,000 people, when you listen to the way they word it, that great expansion to the west, there's 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So, they were moving west and killing everything and going west, but it was 1,000 people or less, So it wasn't a huge amount of people, and the Indians kept looking at them, going, "What y'all doing?"
Well, remember Daniel Boone? We read about Daniel Boone and his nearest neighbor. He was so far out in the wilderness, and when his nearest neighbor moved in, was 9 miles away, and he says, "Man, this place is getting crowded."
And he got up and moved.
Yeah, I mean,
and he was old at the time.
Yeah,
if I remember.
9 miles away. His nearest neighbor is 9 miles away, and it's too dang crowded. And see, this is the thing. Land was a big deal. The natives needed lots of land for the animals, the elk, the deer. That was their cows and horses. The buffalo, they needed that huge tracts of land because, not so they could grow crops, but they did grow crops. Don't get me wrong. but they foraged in the forest for nuts and berries and use the trees for building canoes and whatever they needed, and for firewood, and you name it, they did it. But you needed to have a lot of area, and sometimes you needed to be able to move your area around because you've used up the resources. And that's what the native tribes did. They some of the ones in the east were not very nomadic, but they did move their village about every 4 to 5 years, maybe longer. Remember, we talked about that. The resources would get used up, and they would move the whole village, 5 or 10 miles away from where they lived.
Yeah.
Build a whole new one. How would you like that? Being uprooted every 5 years to go build a new house.
Yeah. Yep. I was driving back from town yesterday, and I hadn't been this way in a while. And I'm driving along in just 45, looking out the window, seeing what's changed and what's being planted, and what fields are empty this year. And I look on both sides, and there's one plantation, the burnt plantation. This over here is the Smith Gallwood plantation. And then I drive down a little farther, it's another plantation. Now, as I'm driving, I'm looking through the planted pines a good distance away on both sides of me, right? And I'm looking and just riding along and looking and riding along. And, there goes a bird. There's no wildlife. So in order for a person on foot would have to travel 10 miles to try to find a deer. Now, there are deer around here, and they hide in the bushes and stuff. But if you got a big old tribe that's hungry, even around here, I saw a deer cross the road one day on the same road now, big buck, huge track. And, but I was like, so you get him, and then what?
Yeah.
So you got that big buck. Okay, you got him. Now what? So you and the tribe eat, and it's gone, and now what?
Yeah.
Y'all gonna have to move because that was the only big one around here. You're gonna have to move someplace else. So I thought about that the other day, and I was like, with all the land that's here and all the woods and everything, and they're growing corn in places and stuff, not one animal did I see in the distance. And so, I could see a half a mile on either side of me. So that's a mile. They ain't nothing there. No critters. What you gonna eat? Bark.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm the same out here in the middle of Timbuktu land. There's nothing. There's nobody. No trees. So you can see farther than ever. I mean, there's a deer a mile away. You can see it because it just sticks out like a sore thumb. But here's the thing. It ain't like there's 50 deer in that mile. There's 2 or 3. And they're traveling together. It might be a mama and a couple babies or something. And then you're moving around, and I'm thinking, okay, you go to hunt that deer. How do you sneak up on that deer that's a mile away? By the time you get close to it, it runs away. And then you spend all day tracking that thing. To
try to get a shot at it. Yep.
Yeah, you can see where he runs. He can't run away, but he sees you just as you see them, so that's got to be hard. So, like I said, you need a lot of land for the critters. I'm sure there was more critters back then there is today, but still, there was also more people hunting them because they didn't just have deer season or elk season well, you got to get a tag or you don't get one. You got the Americans going out there feeding their families with deer and elk and all of that. You got the Indians going out there feeding themselves with deer and elk and all of that. Well, the supplies get low after a while when you get too many people because the land can only support so many, right?
That's right. And that one of the things that we should commend the Indians in that they knew how to manage the land. They knew that there was too many people. They knew that, that the guns were a really big factor in that they could, drop an animal at just, at 50 paces, and where,
Yep.
arrows and things were not as effective. So, you know, that made a big deal. And so I think the Western push was not so much how many, it was the fact that they had guns.
That too. Technology.
100 people with guns is going to be pretty damn devastating.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I've been reading about extinct animals. I think we did a show once on extinct animals. Did you know that most of the animals that started going extinct about the time that guns started getting really popular? When like the early or the late 1700s and all the way up through about the mid 1800s, lots of animals went extinct because man had developed the gun, and now he could go out there and just blast away at everything that's he couldn't get before within a bow and arrow or a spear. Now he could just stand out there and say, "Hey, look, there's a deer out there. I'll just go shoot it." Do you need it? No, but it was fun to shoot the gun, right?
Yep.
And therefore, they killed a lot of the animals off pretty fast. Okay, let's move on. We're talking about the Ohio Valley, which was one of the big prizes for the Native Americans. I shouldn't say that was a prize for the colonists, but it was home of the Native Americans. People like Cornstalk and Blackfish and White Eyes and Buck Genalis Cornstalk was the Shawnee leader. Blackfish was another Shawnee leader. He tried to lead attacks on the Kentucky settlements. Kentucky. Let's go to Kentucky. Anyway, White Eyes was an Lenape or Delaware leader who tried diplomacy and neutrality. It didn't seem to work out for any of these guys. And Buck Long, he was another Lenape leader who moved towards resistance. None of them actually went good. But anyway, the natives people, it was like a dreamland of land companies, settlers, speculators, and frontier families. By 1776, Kentucky settlements like Boonesboro, Harrisboro, and Logan Station were under pressure. Shawnee, Mingo, Delaware, Lenape, and other native fighters resisted the flood of the settlers into their country. Now, you got to hand it to them, the natives of the East. They really put up a good fight. But then again, the only reason I think they put up such a good fight against the settlers was the fact that the odds were fairly even, technology-wise. The settlers had black powder guns. The natives had bows and arrows and black powder guns. So it wasn't like, they got machine guns and we got, black powder guns. Kind of like at the end of the 18th or the 19th century when the natives, the Sioux, were fighting the cavalry and stuff. The cavalry had repeating rifles, and they would bring howitzers, and the natives still were shooting bows and arrows and black powder guns.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. You're fighting cavemen that hadn't really got technology, and all of a sudden you got guys out there with Henry repeating rifles, boom, boom, and the natives are revolvers. The natives were terrified of those revolvers. They held 6 or 8 shots, sometimes more, and then they couldn't reload their guns or shoot their arrows as fast as a man could pull that trigger. So, just saying. The American Revolution in the Ohio country, was a western frontier where American military actions later aimed to challenge native power. And a history article on Ohio County puts the dilemma early and clearly. Native people in the region had to decide whether Britain or the Americans were more likely to protect their lands and their way of life. Well, we'll see. Because Back east, men argued over taxation and representation, as we talked about at the beginning of the show. Out west, the question was cabins and cornfields, forts, hunting grounds, and who had the right to the river valleys, where, river valleys where all the good stuff was. And, anyway.
Consider this. When the pioneers came over and they came out and looked, upon the land, and as far as the eye could see, there's nobody here.
Well, yeah.
They didn't think anybody owned it. They didn't think anybody was trying to take care of it. And in their own way, the natives, they were taking care of the preserve, if you will. The nature preserve of the United States, and they were taking care of it.
Yeah, well, that was their like I said, they didn't raise cows, they raised deer, they raised buffalo, they raised elk,
they raised squirrels, and they raised everything. Everything was on the land. It all, to this day, they're finally learning that it all is supposed to work together.
Well, yeah, and then the thing is in the big picture, well, they didn't need to grow a lot of crops. They had acorns from the trees. They grind up in the flour. They had native plants, the herbs and things growing right out their back door that they could make into medicine and food and vitamin C stuff right off the pine tree. And they could, pick the berries and make food out of berries and tap the trees and make maple syrup, right there in their backyard every year, all the time. Fish out of the stream. How wonderful a life is that? You didn't have to go to the store and purchase products. Everything was outside right in front of you. Just look around. I'm sure the white man came there and the native said, hey, look around. See, we got a stream over there with fish in it. And we got trees over there with squirrels in it. And we got over there, we got a big field with deer and elk grazing. And,
bang.
Yeah.
Bang.
Yeah.
Look, there's a squirrel. Bang. There's a bird. Bang.
Yep. And that was that easy too. That easy.
And and they were killing stuff like, for example, the woodpecker that went extinct down here. They're still around, by the way. Ivory-billed woodpecker. But they were killing the birds for the feathers to send overseas for the ladies to put in their hats.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So stuff like that kind of gets you peed off because, it's like you're the native and you're saying, hey, we've been here for 1,000 years with all the food and everything we want. And you come in here and you kill everything that's moving because there's some profit in it for you.
Right. So the native comes up to the guy that's holding the dead woodpecker and he goes, what you kill that for? And he goes, well, I can get back then, I can get $5 for this bird. What, why? Well, the feathers, the women love to put them in their hair and in their hats, just like your chiefs. This was their excuse. Just like your chiefs love to wear those feathers on their, and so the native was like, how do I argue with that point? But you kill all the birds, soon there will be no feathers.
Yeah.
Well, as long as I can get $5 a bird, I'm going to keep shooting them.
That's right.
There you go.
That's how it works. Yeah, anyway, we're going to move on. One of the strongest 4th of July stories because it happens right in 1776. The Cherokee were facing constant pressure from settlers moving into their lands. And during the early revolution, some Cherokee leaders sided with Britain or acted against the frontier settlements because they saw American expansion as a greater danger. The American battlefield, trust notes, and the Cherokee Nation was split, with one fraction supporting colonists and the others supporting Britain. Like I said, even the native tribes were split on what they wanted to do because each had a benefit. The Americans were good with some, and the British said, "Hey, we'll let you keep your lands because we don't want expansion." Each one was getting played.
And also, right across the river and up to the north in Canada, the French were hanging on.
Yeah, there was a lot
And
of war.
so some of them would cross the river, and some of them would get involved, and at times, like during the Confederacy, they were trying to borrow money from the French to keep on. And so, see, although it doesn't say it, but the French were in there too.
Oh yeah, because it was in the advantage of the French, because the French were battling with Britain over land, and it was for their advantage to fund the Americans so they could fight the British, which gave them basically more soldiers fighting the same army. Right?
And who was going to be the easiest, Britain or the Americans?
Yes.
To like get along with. And they were like, we'll take the Americans because at least they're new to the land, and and they don't have a bunch of military yet, and they're still trying to scrounge up, cannons and gunpowder, and where the Brits are still coming over in boats with 1,000 guys, and so the French are like, who do we want to win?
Yeah. Well, it's just like today is no different than before. We want somebody to win. We're going to fund that country fighting the bigger country, the little country against the big country, and you all know which one that is. I ain't going to mention it because we don't want to get flagged. Anyway,
the UK.
Yeah. So there was the demand. There was a big battle, a demand of blood, the Cherokee War of 1776. It's a conflict of frontier violence exploding into a border war. So anyway, following colonial retaliation. So the thing is, there was, we're going to move on from that. Anyway, this was the whole thing. It was the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, often called the Iroquois Confederacy, included the Mohawk, the Oneida, the Onganaga, the Cayuga, the Seneca, the Tuscarosa, and the National. So anyway, the Hussein referred to themselves as the people of the Longhouse, with the Confederacy symbolized as the Longhouse stretching across much of present-day New York. Okay, the Hussein wanted
wait, was that where the border war was?
No, we moved on past the border war. That was a Cherokee.
I know, but where was the border war?
Oh, it doesn't say where this was. Hang on a second. Boo, boo, boo. I'm looking. I got to click on some buttons here.
I'm sorry, but see, there are comments made in history, the border wars. Where? Well, it was the border wars. Where? Well, the Indians against, the border. Where? Some of these,
I'm going to answer a question in a second. Okay. Anyway, we got, I'm looking it up. Okay.
Leave it to me, right?
Yeah. No, you ask good questions. I moved on a little bit past that for a second. So
yeah, I had to lasso you and drag you back a bit.
No, that's all right. That's what.
Did you see the president's airplane go over your head the other day? Yesterday?
No, I didn't.
You should have. It's a big son of a gun.
I was working, so I didn't have time. It probably went right over here because that's the way to Medora anyway. The Theodore Roosevelt the Presidential Library. Yes, the library. Revolution. What? Ooh. Yeah, it's always something. Anyway. Anyway, yeah. What year border war? What was the year? 1776 was the year of the border war. Like I said, it was the same. The Cherokee War of 1776 happened mainly in the southern Appalachian frontier, especially around what is now East Tennessee, Western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, North Georgia, and Southwest Virginia, from the frontier Virginia settlements. Okay, so there was the big ones were Watauga, yes, the Holston, Nunchucky settlements in present-day East Tennessee, where the settlers had moved in the land claimed by the Cherokee. The Sycamore, the Shoals, the Watauga, present-day Elizabethton, Tennessee, where the Watauga land deal happened, which angered many Cherokee leaders. Cherokee towns along the Little Tennessee River in present-day Eastern Tennessee, there included important Overhill Cherokee towns. The Middle and Lower Cherokee towns in present-day North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia. Fort Watauga near present-day Elizabethton, Tennessee, tied to frontier attacks and defense in 1776. So as the Declaration was being signed in Philadelphia, violence was breaking out all along the southern frontier and Cherokee homelands, which is now Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Virginia. Wow, what a time. You're signing that?
Okay, so they called it a border war. I'm being a crazy man, but they called it a border war, the border between what? There was all these states, I get that, but where was the border? Just ask.
So the border is the Appalachian Mountains,
right?
Because the colonies were all set up in these states, and the king had said, this is the states you have to stay in. Remember, we talked about this once before, how the colonists would break out and illegally set up, they would go west and set up farms and things like that in the middle of Timbuktu land, because there was free open land and they weren't ruled by any. And
there you go. That's the key. So if you lived in one of the colonies, you had to pay taxes. If you moved out of the colonies and went west, you couldn't be taxed. How about that?
And the British would go.
When you brought your goods into the colonies, you would be taxed. But otherwise, you just live free and clear. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Remember that not only would the Indians come and attack you and burn your house down, but the British would march through there. And if they found you had a house and it was illegal, they would burn your house down and kick you out. So, it was great, but it wasn't great all at the same time. The thing is the British didn't, they're not going to march 100 miles out just to burn a house down.
But they would, if they knew there was somebody out there, they would send, 5 guys on horseback to do it, So they were vicious.
Yes.
I don't know how else to put it. Some of them folks back then were just vicious, and
well, yeah. That's the thing too, is they had the Hessian soldiers, which were just men trained to fight, and that's all they did. Okay, so let's see, where am I?
They were mercenaries.
Yeah, they were mercenaries, and as a mercenary, you don't care who you're fighting, just as long as you get paid.
They were German thugs from the Highlands.
Exactly. Trained from, and the idea for one of those soldiers was you go out and fight. If you make it through and you do so many years of service, they give you land and money and retirement, and you could retire pretty early and live a good life if you did what they wanted you to do.
Yeah, 10 years of service could set you up for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so if you if you came from a poor family or something and you worked hard and became a soldier, in 10 years, yes, they were Germans. They were Germans.
Yep.
The Hessian soldiers were Germans. That's what Elderberry says. The idea is you could retire good with land, which was hard because most people were coming over here to the States to get land because you just couldn't go buy land. There was no land to have in Europe, right? Everybody lived.
And and here's the thing: if the king didn't give you any, you didn't get any.
That's right.
The king owned it all. And that's one of the things the Americans were like, screw you, you're all the way across the ocean. You don't own nothing over here. We own it. This is our land. We cut the trees down and built, houses and so forth. We've made streets and, and this is our stuff. It ain't yours. So imagine that. People these days, especially the younger folks, they just do not Trump's acting like a king and blah, 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 blah. And no, if he was acting like a king, the British would have lined you up and shot you just about the way the Nazis did in the old days. They would not put up with it. You're working with the other side, boom. Or hang you. And that was women too. They don't report too much about that kind of stuff. But if you weren't doing what they said, you were against the king. There was treason.
Oh yeah.
Everything you did, if you didn't give all of your taxes and you held a little back, that was treasonous.
Yes.
Time for the king to kill you, off with your head.
Yeah, there was no excuses.
They had guillotines back then.
Exactly. I mean, so anyway, let's get back at the show here. Okay. The war after 1776, the Declaration of Independence was signed, but did that make the nations of the Indians any safer or better? No. The pressure on the Indians didn't stop. It just increased. It grew. It got worse because now we declared our independence. We're going to move west. We're going to go to Ohio Valley. We're going to go to Tennessee. We're going to go to Kentucky. We're going to go to these places, and the king can't tell us no. And we're going to take over these lands because they're good lands. They're crop lands. They're farmlands. There's big trees out there because the natives, they didn't cut the trees down. They didn't plow the fields. They had deer and buffalo and elk eating and grazing. And we're going to shoot them all up. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, so once the United States won independence, many Americans believed that the West was now wide open. But the native nations did not surrender their homelands just because the British lost the war. We have George Rogers Clark and the Illinois country. We got a tax on Ohio villages. We have the Sullivan campaign. We did a show on the Sullivan campaign once against the Haudenosaunee in 1779. We have treaties and fights after the war. The Northwest Indian War of the 1790s and the Fallen Timbers and the Treaty of Greenville. We have, of course, removal policies enacted, Trail of Tears and things like that. According to Mountain Vernon, notes that in 1779, George Washington, he sent the Sullivan expedition into Haudenosaunee County to destroy villages and crops, aiming to stop British and native raids. And that campaign helped earn Washington and the Haudenosaunee name Town Destroyer. Good old George, go in there and burn those towns and kill those crops and tell those Indians tough luck. And they always did it like in the fall when the Indians would starve all winter long. Yeah, good job, George. Okay.
But he was protecting American interests.
He was, I mean, I get it. It was a strategic move, but still, here's the Indians, and
But
you
that
know,
but that was the method back then.
yes,
That was how do you get rid of them? Well, that was kung fu way of um dealing with in war. So burn out their
yeah,
crops and you'll get rid of the enemy and blah blah blah. So he was following the code of war in a way,
he was. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about the
a
Declaration of
crazy way,
Independence.
but
Yeah, the crazy way. But here, Declaration of Independence. It was said all men are created equal. And, this document, but the document that labels Native peoples as merciless Indian savages. So all men are created equal, but that doesn't count for the natives. They're merciless Indian savages. You know, before
the
July
black
4th,
man was only a third human.
that's right. So a lot of contradictory things going on from our point of view, looking back at history. We, like you said, with Washington doing that was just the way they did things back then, good, bad, or otherwise. But that was a battle plan. Okay, we have the frontier that was already burning on before July 4th. The whole Ohio Valley had already seen war, land, hunger, and native resistance. Also, native neutrality was almost impossible. You had to pick a side. The British come through. If you weren't with them, they burn your town. If the colonists come through, you weren't with them, they burn your town. You couldn't win. You couldn't win. Both Britain and America wanted native alliances. Yeah, because they wanted the natives to fight the war for them. And then, so the natives were fighting natives. It's crazy. But the native nations wanted survival. That's what they wanted. They just wanted to protect their homelands. Again, we keep saying that. Cherokee towns paid for the revolution. In 1776, it did just not mean fireworks. It meant militia campaigns into Cherokee country. The Haudenosaunee split, one of the strongest native confederacies in North America, was pulled apart by the revolution. Again, native against native. The natives didn't produce as many children and population as the white man did. Besides, the white man had people coming overseas, keeping the population going. The natives, if they went to war and 10 of their warriors got killed, it took quite a few years to bring back more warriors. It wasn't like, just send some warriors over from out west and we'll repopulate. No,
it would take like at least, it would take, you have a kid, it's going to take 15 years for that kid to get old enough.
Yes.
I mean, on either side, but still, but they were bringing teenagers over from Europe.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People were coming over by the boatload from Europe, and if you had 100 or 200 natives get killed, one boatload replaced all of those people of the Americans. So it's like, it's going to take us 20 years to repopulate those warriors, but the white man, well, he just got 200 warriors shipped in. Where they're coming from, we don't know.
And they would write home and go, we would need some more guys. So how many you need? And sometimes they'd Shanghai them, and tie them below deck until they got out to sea, and then, either come with us or swim to shore.
Yeah, I agree. Well, anyway, we have the independence for the natives. The United States won independence from Britain, but the native nations still considered themselves independent people.
Right.
Yeah, because, hey, we didn't sign up for this, great white chief. We signed up for, what did we sign? We didn't sign anything. After 8.
And they were free before they showed up, so.
Yeah. Exactly. After 1783, liberty and land became tied together, and native nations stood in the way of expansion. Yes, exactly. The natives are living on that nice chunk of land. They got some good trees over there. I think I'll move in. They're just native savages. They can move away. They don't even have a permanent house or a fort or nothing. So I just move in, and if they argue with me, I will just take my rifle out and start shooting at them. They'll run away, and that's what they did. And then they'll bring some guys back, and we'll have a big fight. But more likely, I'll survive, which is true. You know. Okay, so.
And in the end, they did.
Yeah, they exactly.
But in a lot of ways, the Native Americans are still winning, because, you know, the white man, like in Oklahoma and out there, are like, you know, we put a bunch of buffalo out here on this land, and damned if buffalo being here helped the prairie.
Yeah,
the prairie's coming back. Why? Because of the buffalo.
Exactly.
Oh, you mean there's a harmony in land and stuff, and well, duh. But see, that the Native Americans believe that in their heart. That's one thing that white people will never get. They feel it in here, you know, and they just understand that, you know, no, you take away the buffalo, the prairie's going to go bad. Why? Because the buffalo turn up the land, and they poo, and they do these other things, and it helps with the prairie. And now now the scientists are going, well, I'll be dang.
Yeah.
You know, so
it's true. I believe that 100%. Okay. So the 4th of July is remembered as the birth of American freedom. So on this 4th of July, think of that. But tonight we look at another side. We've looked at the other side of that. And for the Native nations in 1776, it did not bring liberty. It brought uncertainty and pressure of war and new government hungry for Western land. You know, I can imagine the sinking in their hearts as they heard the Americans sign the Declaration of Independence, knowing that, oh my, Americans are coming. They're moving in. Oh boy. The Shawnee, the Cherokee, the Delaware, the Miami, and the Haudenosaunee had many others were not waiting to be discovered or conquered. That wasn't their thing. They were nations with leaders, councils, and farms, towns, trade routes, laws, and homelands. You know, we didn't settle the country. It was already settled. We just took over their settlements. Most of you people out there that are living in a town, a lot of those towns are named after natives. So when America declared independence, Native nations had to ask the hard question of what happens to us now. And that question did not end in 1776, of course not. It went through the Ohio Valley, the Cherokee towns, the Longhouse, and every frontier trail that followed. And that's the other side of 1776. As, you know, we can think of that. So we're going to look at a few pictures here as we close out my segment. And, you know, we can see from a lot of these pictures how they would sign treaties. They would sign treaties, make peace with the colonists, saying, you know, we need to protect our lands. You know, we won't come and raid you if you just leave us alone. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. You know, they were trying hard to make peace. I think they knew that we're going to get all killed off if we keep doing, you know, this fighting. You know, 100 of our troops get killed, and sure, we might kill 50, 100 of theirs, but we can't repopulate, and they just keep coming with more. Way up into the 1800s, here they are, sitting under a tent, making peace with the natives. As you can see the difference in now that we have pictures at this point, you can see the difference in the structure of the white man. That's what I liked about this picture. You got the white man all sitting on stoops and chairs here, and you got the natives. They're huddled around a fire with maybe some blankets on. You know, they ain't all gussied up. Like these guys look at suits and ties almost. You know, I mean, fancy clothes. I mean, I can see them all sitting there, probably disgusted, thinking, "What are we doing here? This is just crazy. We're making peace with savage people." Probably.
And if not only that, but them white men all had we're going to have to get them to sign this, but they all had ulterior motives.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Every single one of them. Like, yeah, I can't wait till they sign this and we get back, to the city and we start doing our whatever it is they're going to do. But yeah, they every one of them. Look at that guy on the right side there on the end. Do you think he's like really paying attention to the Indians? He can't wait to get out of there and go get a beer.
That's right. That is absolutely true. Okay, if native treaties were honored, this would be the native lands, and this would be the United States. So there you go. This is how our country would actually look.
What? What color is us?
We're in the yellow, and the natives are in the green.
Yep.
But instead,
but even there on the East Coast, there should be more green.
Oh, probably. But this is what they say. Okay. And again, if some native nations allowed us to join the United States instead of being colonized, then the green would be the states that were founded by the natives and the states founded by the Americans. So there you go. California, Washington, but almost the whole plains would have been native, and the rest, it would be a big contrast of states founded by natives. Like I said before, a lot of the states that people live in, towns, cities, the whole state itself, named after native tongues, native words. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Native. How many? Yeah, exactly. Whole states named after natives. Okay, let's move on. We can blow this up a little bit. We can see the difference here. This is 1784 to 1819. Native is the brown, white is the colonies, the Americans, settled lands, and here's lands claimed by tribes. I don't know which is which, but this is the colonies again. Most of this is native land. And if the natives would have kept the land, more than half of the United States would be native.
Yep.
But as you can see, the 1840 to 1859, the natives are moving west, little by little. More of them are moving west, and the rest here is the white is the Americans moving in, the colonists, and this is the natives, about split 50-50. But by 1860 and 1879, as you can see on this one, it's changed dramatically. They're getting squished out, and pretty soon they're gone. And here, 1880 to 1872, little bitty chunks of native land left. And here is present day reservations. So they went from, more than half of the United States to little chunks of reservation, mostly out west. It's kind of sad, but they're all those natives. Now this is their lands. Their homelands are these little chunks. Yeah. How about that? Well, there we go. And that's my presentation for tonight. So, what do you think of all that? Any words on all of that? What do you think should have happened? Or what do you think we should do now? That should be the thing. We know what happened. We know what we did. I don't think we can just give back the land. I don't think we can just return it and say, hey, white man, you move out and we're going to bring in the natives and they're going to take over now.
Some of it they can.
Yeah, well, yeah, some chunks.
Out in Wyoming, where one guy owns 1,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 10,000 acres, you know, and it's like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, I paid for it and I did. Well, somebody give him some give that one man some compensation and let the natives have it back. You know? Oh, there's a corporation that owns 10,000 acres out in Wyoming or out, out there, and if you've never been to Wyoming, 10,000 acres is a little farm,
Yeah.
where around here, 100 acres is a decent little farm, out there, 1,000 acres, 10,000, holy, and it goes on for miles. So I'm sorry, deed some of that land back to the native because it was there before you got here. Period.
Yeah.
There is no question about who had it before the white guys got here. Period. It was theirs. So
Yes.
be nice. You got plenty of land. Give them a chunk back. And there are places where, even in the Dakotas, where the Indians are still fighting to get some of the private land back. That who was it? Custer and his group went there to search for gold.
Yeah.
Isn't that right in Black Hills there?
The Black Hills, yeah.
And so they claimed some property, and the natives are going, no, we never gave up this property around here. And so they're still fighting to get land back. And in Oklahoma, there are folks who are actually giving some of the land back. So, is it total reparations? No, I don't believe that could happen. But out in Wyoming, could they give some of that back to the natives? Oh, hell yeah. It's just that, I'm sorry, it is rich white people who think they can control everything. So it's their farm, they bought it. My father fought for it. What did he do? He killed a bunch of Indians so he could have it. Dang it. So,
Yeah.
and then the Indians, the great grandchildren are going, hey, dude, you killed my grandpa for this place. What's the deal? So, but anyway.
Yep. And with all of that, we'll have to see what the future brings. Just want to big a shout out. Remember, people, go out and get yourself one of these nice mugs that have Native American myths and legends on them. These nice shirts here that Nita made up with Robert and David and Hawkeye Two Feathers on there. It's an awesome shirt to have. And she's got the new mugs out here and the new Beyond Belief. Look at, they got my smiling face. Woohoo! I got the new mug. Anyway, new shirts and stuff like that too in the store, so check that out. But we're going to be moving on to the story tonight. What do you got for us tonight?
Hang on.
Did you get it up?
Sort of. I got to be very. The computer is really touchy. If I touch the pad down here, it goes wacko, and I can't find the cursor, and then it won't come back, and then I can't, double click on anything. It won't come up. It's weird. So I have pulled cards though. So if you want to put what cards you think you got or what I've already pulled, do a little mind reading. All right, what cards? Yeah. I tried to talk Barry into playing a little game tonight with the cards. I was going to let him know what a couple of the cards were, and he's like, "No, I won't play along this time." But I tried my best to coerce him into. I did. All right. We got two short stories for tonight. Simply because I keep running into short stories. So it's like, okay, let's do them. And all right, I got to be real careful with the.
I don't know what stories they are because you haven't told me yet.
I'm fixing to tell you.
Okay.
I'm fixing to tell you. Okay. The next story, I hope, is the old Chippewa.
Okay. I don't know what page it's on.
I'm looking for the page number. It says H. Oh, 113.
Oh, I was at like 180. 80, not.
$113. The old Chippewa. Uh-oh, there goes the cursor.
You're going to have to like shut it off, take the battery out, and then reset the whole computer.
Yeah. You can't take the battery out without breaking the case. It's one of them.
Oh, it's one of those. Yeah.
It works okay. It's not the computer's fault. It's the program's fault. And I've been swearing that I'm going to change over to Linux. And I'm going to figure it out. And I'm going to switch and get out of this damn Microsoft Windows stuff. It's crazy. Even Chrome has gotten crazy. So are you ready?
No, I'm still, my computer's going a little slow, speaking of all that. It's just not working so good.
Okay, so I'm going to give a hint out with the cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 cards were pulled tonight. That's a bad imitation of the Dracula on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But
all right, I think I got her now.
Don't move that cursor, Mr. Dave. Don't touch that pad.
Oh, yeah. Here we go. Skunk, moose, raven, grouse, armadillo, and crow. Lucky says hummingbird. Susie Q says swan. There you go. Okay, you're getting your guesses in. Good deal. Okay, it's all yours.
All righty then. It's story time, ladies and gents. And 2 short stories for tonight. We'll see what happens next week. Going to work on the computers to try to get more stories in. But so our first story for tonight is called The Old Chippewa. And I'm still reading from the book Folklore and Legends, North American Indian by J.B. Lippincott and Company in Philadelphia in 1891. The Old Chippewa. The old man Chippewa, the first of men, when he first landed on the earth, near where the present Dogribs have their hunting grounds, found the world a beautiful world, well stocked with food and abounding with pleasant things. He found no man, woman, or child upon it. But in time, being lonely, he created children, to whom he gave 2 kinds of fruit, the black and the white, but he forbade them to eat the black. Having given his commands for the government and guidance of his family, he took leave of them for a time to go into a far country where the sun dwelt, for the purpose of bringing it to the earth. After a very long journey and a long absence, he returned, bringing with him the sun, and he was delighted to find that his children had remained obedient and had eaten only of the white food. Again, he left them to go on another expedition. The sun he had brought lighted up the earth for only a short time, and in the land from which he had brought it, had noticed another body, which served as a lamp in the dark hours. He resolved, therefore, to journey and bring back with him the moon. So, bidding adieu to his children and his dwelling, he set forth once more. While he had been absent on his first expedition, his children had eaten up all of the white food, and now, when he set out, he forgot to provide them with a fresh supply. For a long time they resisted the craving for food, but at last they could hold out no longer and satisfied their hunger with the black fruit. Old Chipaway soon returned, bringing with him the moon. He soon discovered that his children had transgressed his command and had eaten the food of disease and death. He told them what was the consequence of their act, that in future the earth would produce bad fruits, that sickness would come amongst men, that pain would rack them, and their lives be lives of fatigue and danger. Having brought the sun and moon to the earth, the old man Chipaway rested and made no more expeditions. He lived an immense number of years and saw all the troubles he declared would follow the eating of the black food. At last he became tired of life, and his sole desire was to be freed from it. Go, said he to one of his sons, go to the river of the Bear Lake and fetch me a man of the little wise people, the beavers. Let it be one with a brown ring round the end of the tail and a white spot on the tip of the nose. Let him be just 2 seasons old upon the first day of the coming of Frog Moon, and see that his teeth be sharp. The man did as he was directed. He went to the river of the Bear Lake and brought a man of the little wise people. He had a brown ring around the end of his tail and a white spot on the tip of his nose. He was just 2 seasons old upon the first day of the Frog Moon, and his teeth were very sharp. Take the wise 4-legged man, said the old Chipaway, and pull from his jaws 7 of his teeth. The man did as he was directed and brought the teeth to the old man. Then he bade him call all his people together. And when they were come, the old man thus addressed them: I am old and am tired of life, and wish to sleep the sleep of death. I will go home. Take the 7 teeth of the wise little 4-legged man and drive them into my body. They did so, and as the last tooth entered him, the old man died. Thus, the end of the story. Comments after this next story. This next story, I'm still reading from Folklore and Legends, North American Indian, by J.B. Lippincott and Company in Philadelphia in 1891. This story is Mookamik, Mookamik, Mookamik. Pauakawiwas was a harum-scarum fellow who played many queer tricks, but he took care, nevertheless, to supply his family and children with food. Sometimes, however, hard pressed, and once and his whole family were on the point of starving. Every resource seemed to have failed. The snow was so deep, and the storm continued so long that he could not even find a partridge or a hare, and his usual supply of fish had failed him. His lodge stood in some woods not far away from the shores of the Gitchagumi, or a great water where the autumnal storms had piled up the ice into high pinnacles, resembling castles. I will go, said he to his family one morning, to these castles and solicit the pity of the spirits who inhabit them. For I know that they are the residents of some of the spirits of Rabbi Bunuka. He did so, and his petition was not disregarded. The spirits told him to fill his mushkimuts, or sacks, with the ice and snow and pass on towards his lodge without looking back until he came to a certain hill. He was then to drop his sacks and leave them till morning, when he would find them full of fish. The spirits cautioned him that he must by no means look back, although he should hear a great many voices crying out to him, abusing him, for they told him such voices would be in reality only the wind playing through the branches of the trees. Palpokiwas faithfully obeyed the directions given him, although he found it difficult to avoid looking round to see who was calling to him. When he visited the sacks in the morning, he found them full of fish. It happened that Manabuzzo visited him on the morning when he brought the fish home, and the visitor was invited to partake of the feast. While they were eating, Manabuzzo could not help asking where such an abundance of food had been procured at the time when most were in a state of starvation. Papa Kukiwas frankly told him the secret and what precautions to take to ensure success. Manabozho determined to profit by the information, and as soon as he could, he set out to visit the icy castles. All things happened as Papa Kokiwas had told him. The spirits appeared to be kind and told Manabozho to fill and carry. He accordingly filled his sacks with ice and snow, and then walked off quickly to the hill where he was to leave them. As he went, however, he heard voices calling out behind him. Thief! Thief! He has stolen fish from Rabbi Bunuka, cried one. Mukumik! Mukumik! Take it away, cried another. Manabozho's ears were so assailed by all manner of insulting cries that at last he got angry, and quite forgetting the directions given him, he turned his head to see who it was that was abusing him. He saw no one and proceeded on his way to the hill, to which he was accompanied by his invisible tormentors. He left his bags of ice and snow there to be changed into fish and came back the next morning. His disobedience had, however, dissolved the charm, and he found his bags still full of rubbish. In consequence of this, he is condemned every year during the month of March to run over the hills with Papa Kokiwas following him crying, Muka Mook, Muka Mook, Muka Mook, meaning thief. And thus ends our second story for tonight. So we'll try next week to have one long one, but those were two interesting stories. And since we're through with the stories, I want to do a little comment on the first story. You know, he came out of the sky and landed on the earth, and there was nobody there. You know, and it sounds like some creation stories in a way. So, you know, he was the creator of things. And so as long as folks didn't eat, you know, as long as they ate the white food, they were good to go. But he was away and came back, and sort of like the Garden of Eden. It's like y'all ate of the wrong food on that tree over there, and now you've been judged to, you know, feel pain, and now you got to go out in the real world. And so in a way there was you know, sort of like an Adam and Eve in there.
Yeah,
Robert?
consequence for your actions. You know, right?
Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree with that. It's amazing how these stories, no matter which place told them or how far they were apart from the original storyteller, they still ring true with the same message.
Yeah, and he came from outer space. Don't forget that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. Okay.
He went out and got the sun and drug it back, you know?
Yeah.
And the planet was still dark, you know, half of the time. So he went and got the moon, you know, to provide light at night. I mean, Okie doke.
Well, that's what they did. That's what the Genesis in the Bible was. He created light, bringing the sun. He
right.
created the moon for the night, the stars, and then he created the plants and the animals, and then in the end he created some people, and then they ate at the garden, and then they ate the wrong food, and guess what? They got kicked out.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing. You're just switching it up a little bit, adding
Yep,
in
but
some.
there are still similarities, is the point, right? After all these
Yes.
years and all this stuff, there are still similarities.
Yeah, and it's still the same story. It ends up having the same meaning.
In a lot of ways, yes, sir. So,
yeah.
All right, y'all. There's 7 cards. I gave that hint earlier, and I will start off with them. And we're going to start with the stinky one, skunk. And the next one is snake. And the third one is swan. And somebody had swan.
Yeah, I think it was Susie Q.
Yeah. The fourth one is moose. Oh, skunk's upside down, snake's upside down, swan's right side up, moose is right side up, squirrel is right side up, which is the next one. Frog is right side up, which is the next one. And lizard, bringing up the rear, is upside down. So, frog's about cleanliness. Squirrel is about hiding your nuts. Moose is about strength. And swan is about grace. I'm going backwards because that's how I'm holding the cards. And so, but I'll get skunk and goat from the beginning. So, it doesn't look like a bad spread. It's an interesting story, is what it looks like. So, skunk is number 7 in the book. And snake is the next one, which is number 6 in the book. So I read skunk and then go back one page to snake, which is interesting. Anyway, skunk is about reputation. So, it's like if you're another skunk and you smell bad to humans, you might smell good to that other skunk or another critter. So, like-minded, think alike and share together. So, reputation, if you've got a good reputation as being a skunk, that might mean that you're the worst reputation to a human or other critters, okay? So, it depends on what you mean by, having a bad reputation. Because a bad reputation in one way could mean an excellent reputation in another. Okay. So skunk medicine in the reverse position says that your self-esteem may seem to others as though you're putting on airs. In other words, you're faking it. Well, look at me. I can shoot a bunch of scent out when you can't. And and it smells like garlic and nobody likes you. But so you should examine your feelings, be truthful with yourself. So that's a good way to start out this. Be truthful with yourself. To balance the causes and effects of your actions and energy flows, you must decide whether or not you need to spray in the direction of others to repel them or to bring on an amorous tendencies. On the other hand, you need to always maintain your right to be, your right to exist. Self-respect is the key to all of these situations, whereas ego is merely what you believe yourself to be. So warning us right out from the thing, about your ego. And Skunk says if your ego is not your amigo, you know that it stinks. Okie dokie. So there's our first card. And be careful. Your reputation is important, on both sides. So you may attract someone to it or you may push them away, but there needs to be a balance. So if your ego is your amigo, don't let it get in the way. So now snake is transmutation. Now, snake sheds its skin, um, and just kind of walks right out of it. I've found, whole snake skin, 4 feet long, where the snake just literally crawled right out of his old skin. So we're talking about transmutation here. Transmutation of the life, death, rebirth cycle. So, as the skin gets old and comes off, it's a rebirth. So that's what they're talking about here. But the rebirth is also spiritual. So this medicine teaches you on a powerful level that you are a universal being. Through accepting all aspects of your life, you can bring about the transmutation of the fire medicine. This fire energy, when functioning on the material plane, creates passion and desire and procreation and physical vitality. On the emotional plane, it becomes ambition and creation and resolution and dreams. On the mental plane, it becomes intellect, power, charisma, and leadership. When this snake energy reaches the spiritual plane, it becomes wisdom, understanding, wholeness, and connection to the Great Spirit. So now that's when the card is upright, but that is when snake is connecting on all those different levels. So it's important. But if it's upside down, you have chosen to mask your ability to change. So this works with the skunk. So skunk is like, do you spray to keep people away or are you spraying whatever to bring people in towards you? So you may have chosen to mask your ability to change. So in other words, what did the skunk say? Don't be fake. And here you are right here, you're masking your ability to change, to be better, to, get rid of old things. Look at the idea that you may fear changing your present state of affairs because this may entail a short passage into being discomfort. Oh, I might, a friend of mine, I told him about the operation I had to clean out his prostate. I know there's too much information, but I told him, he said, well, I'm having pain. I'm like, would you rather have pain every single day for months and months on end, or go in and suffer for a day or two and be done with it? So, that's that short passage to discomfort. Oh, it's gonna hurt for a day. Well, you hurt every day now. Anyway, moving on. So does this discomfort keep you from assuming the viewpoint of the magician within you? In other words, being able to pull out something and fixing the situation. Release the outer skin of your present identity. Move through the dreamlike illusion that has insisted on a static continuity. Static doesn't move anywhere, it just stops. Immerse yourself in water and know that the single droplet which you represent is being accepted by the whole. All right, so skunk, be careful. Are you trying to call people in, or are you trying to repel them? And snake is like, are you trying to hide yourself from changing? You know. So next card, swan, number 39. Got to go to the back of the book. Ooh, look at that. Almost to the right page. I love the swan. That's about grace. And little swan was the ugly duckling and flew through the dream time, looking for the future. She rested for a moment in the coolness of the pond, looking for a way to find the entry point to the future. Now, all of us are kind of looking for the future. What are we going to do tomorrow? We're going to change jobs. We're going to go to the job we got. Is it good enough? Are we looking for another one? What are we going to do? We're looking for the future. Okay. So, Dragon, um, this was a moment of confusion for Swan because she knew she entered the dream time by accident. This was her first time alone, and she knew she was a bit concerned by the dream time. As Swan looked high above Sacred Mountain, she saw the biggest swirling black hole that she had ever seen. Dragonfly came by, and Swan stopped and said, "What's going on?" And Swan said, "That over there is the doorway to other planes of imagination." Dragonfly says, "I've been the guardian of the illusion for many, many moons. If you want to enter, you will have to ask permission and earn the right to enter." And Swan was not so scared, and she wanted to enter the black hole. She asked Dragonfly what was necessary for earning the entry. Dragonfly replied, "You must be willing," this is important, "you must be willing to accept whatever the future holds as it is presented by the Great Spirit, without trying to change Great Spirit's plan." The swan looked at her ugly little duckling self and then answered, "I'll be happy to abide by the Great Spirit's plan. I won't fight the currents of the black hole. I will surrender to the flow of the spiral and trust what I am shown." So here's the deal. To accept the grace from God and from the Creator, you have to accept the Creator's plan. So here's the two cards. Are you attracting somebody that you want, or are you repelling your enemies? And Snake is saying, are you putting a mask on? Are you being fake? Do you not want to change, and you holding things up? And here's Swan, full of grace, asking to see the future and what it will bring. And Dragonfly is like, you got to accept it. You know, if you want it, you got to accept it. So, and you got to give into it. So, are you holding back, sort of like Snake is, by hiding? Are you not using, what you have? Now, the next card is Moose, straight up. And Moose is about self-esteem. So this fits with the other three cards. You got to have self-esteem. So, do you have enough self-esteem to follow through what the Creator is asking for you, what the swan is asking for? So Moose is all about that um, um, self-esteem issue. Because when Moose bellows and he calls for a mate, you can hear him for miles, right? And so it's his self-esteem and his bellowing that draws in the mates, which would go with the skunk. Skunk need to decide whether or not you're squirting to attract or repel. Make up your mind, right? And snake is, don't be wearing a mask and trying to fool people. It's time to change. And here's Moose saying, be strong and have some self-esteem. That all sounds like, stand up and do your thing right, So the next card up is Squirrel, which is right side up. Oops, wrong one. One more page. Squirrel is about gathering. So we've talked about gathering before, like, being a prepper and gathering enough food and materials and whatever, but sometimes you can gather too much. So squirrel at this particular time is upright, and the gathering power of squirrel medicine is a great gift. It teaches you how to gather and store your energy. Store your energy for times of need. It teaches you to reserve something for future use. So, you're already trying to look for the future and a state of grace. You got to have enough self-esteem to do it. And you got to have some squirrel medicine to understand the power of gathering and how to store your energy for times of future times. It teaches you to reserve something for a future use, whether it be a judgment, an opinion, a savings account, candles, or maybe just extra food. So to put it in a nutshell, squirrel is the Boy Scout of the animal kingdom, to always be prepared. So it's not just about food and nuts and stuff. It's about energy and thoughts, and maybe it's ideas. You got some ideas and you're working for a company, but you don't tell them right away. You have to wait for the right, the right moment to go talk to the boss, So you got to save something energy wise, not just something physical. Okay. So the next one up is frog, and I think it's all about cleansing. Oh, there's lizard, which is the next one after that. Lizard's about dreaming, but he's upside down. So 38. Okay, I gotta go more this way. Yep, frog is about cleansing, and he's right side up. So here you got squirrel that's saving energy. Moose is about self-esteem. And frog sings the song that brings the rain. Frog teaches us to honor our tears, for they cleanse the soul. All water rights belong to frog, including all initiations by water. So, what do they do? Come on down to the river, we baptize you. That could be one. And the Catholics say don't take you to the river, they pour the water over the baby's head and try to drown him in the, in the church. So, but water prepares and cleanses the body for sacred ceremony. It is the element we understand best in the womb. Frog is like ourselves, and frog is a polywog in the fetal waters. In other words, when frog is first born, he's a little tadpole, and that little tadpole is a vegetarian. And when that tadpole turns into a frog, he starts eating things, insects, becomes a carnivore. So in frogs, evolution, he's been transformed into adulthood, which prepares frogs for its power to call the waters from the skies. If frog hopped into your cards today, its ribbit may be calling you in the cleansing you may need. So it may be that you're holding back too much old stuff and you need a good bath. And squirrels like, save some of that energy and pull it in. And now our last card in this. So frog is about cleansing, and that don't mean just taking a bath, but that means taking a bath spiritually. So, if you've been hoarding too much energy or maybe the wrong energy, maybe time for frog to help you straighten some of that out. And number 36 is lizard. Frog was number 38, by the way. Upside down lizard. Here we go for our last card for tonight. I hope this is making sense to any of you or all of you. Lizard is about dreaming, and that's when Snake, which is in our cards tonight, crawled under the ledge with Lizard, and Snake kept saying, "Why? How come you keep sleeping all the time?" And Lizard's like, he's got two sets of eyelids. So he closes one while the other one's still open. He goes, "I'm not asleep. I'm dreaming. I'm in the dream time, trying to dream the future." And he tells Snake, "I dreamed you because I knew you were going to crawl in here and ask me to curl up." And he said, "And I knew you weren't going to eat me." And Snake was like, "How'd you know that?" And he goes, "Well, I can see in your belly you done ate something already." And Snake was like, "Well, that's true." So Lizard's like, "So I dreamed the future that you would not eat me." Now, so Lizard, that's where his mindset is, right? So, but it's upside down. If it's upside down, you may be having a nightmare during your dream time. It is a sign of inner conflict. So, see, there's frog. That was the card before it. And I had trouble figuring out which was the last card. So it may be that frog should have been the last card. I argued with these two when I laid them down. So lizard is like, you've got a conflict going on. And here's frog saying, you need to clean up your act. So squirrels save energy that you might need later. Lizards like, you may be dreaming, having nightmares, or you may be dreaming the wrong future, which gives you a nightmare. It could be the simple message that you are confronting your fears and therefore do not need to experience nightmarish events in your day-to-day life. Another message of lizard reversed is that you may need more sleep or more dream time. It could also imply that you have a lack of dreams for your future. You're just going along, going to work, and it could be a good job. You might really like it, but there's no future. It's like, are you saving up to buy a guitar? Or are you saving up to go on a trip? Or so in some sense, contrary lizard is insisting that you look to your imagination for a new experience. And make sure that you wash yourself off and cleanse it with frog. And remember that squirrel is saying, save up your energy for future things. So, not a bad set of cards. It's warning you, don't be afraid of that change. You got to be strong with self-esteem like Moose. So, there's your cards for tonight, my friends.
I think that was a good set of cards.
What you think?
Very well explained. Very well explained. I think we had Lucky, who got 3 of them right. We had Susie Q. She got 3 right too. How about that?
Wow, that's pretty good for tonight, ain't it?
Yeah. I think if you put them all together, we would have had most of them. Witchy Moon got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. She guessed 10 of them. and got 0. How about that one?
Oh, Witchy Moon.
Lucky.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Lucky he got lizard, frog, and skunk right. And Susie Q on a last minute throw, she got skunk, moose, right, and then she added swan in there too. So there's her 3 right. So awesome on this 250th anniversary of the United States. We look forward to another 250 years. You think we'll make it another 250 years?
I don't know. I hope so. I know that the basics are there. If people would will stop with this communism crap and stick with the, being able to vote for things.
Yep.
But for our Democratic friends that might listen to this, we love you, but they stuck Kamala Harris in at the last minute to run for president. They didn't allow anybody to vote for her. They stuck her in there and said, y'all gonna vote for this person. And that is not right. That is not how the system works. You're supposed to be able to vote for those folks. And so remember, the Democratic Party, we're going to stay here. Remember what they did to you the last election. They picked Kamala and stuck her in there and said, vote for her, period.
That's right.
And that, they took away every single Democrat their right as a Democrat and took it away. As a democracy, you're supposed to be able to vote and choose. They didn't give anybody a chance. So if I were to still be a Democrat, which I'm not, I don't know what I am, but the fact that they did that, I washed my hands of them people. It's like, nah, sorry. So, but anyway, store up your energy, like Squirrel says, because you might need it for later, and you don't know what it's like, but if you take some time to be in the dream time, like Lizard is suggesting, you might see what short time future might be. Be surprised what's in the dream time.
Yep. That's for sure. Anyway, I just want to big a shout out there. Everybody go check out Lucky's show. He's got it posted already. He gets on there with Grandpa Brian on Friday nights, where A7 used to be, and check him out. And with that, check out Beyond Truth. We'll be having another great show on Sunday night. Also, remember, join us here on the Milky Way on Saturday night. We'll be talking about the 250th year, a little bit more. Maybe I'll be reading from Declaration of Independence. We'll be shooting off some fireworks. Oh, maybe. And things like that. A lot of fun, good stuff. Yeah, you shooting off some fireworks this time or just watching?
Oh, no, I got some. I got about 26 mortars, that explode in the sky. I love them things. And I love the smell of gunpowder after you shoot off a few. And of course, I got some bottle rockets, a few M80s to make some noise. And why not make some noise? I mean, I'm 73 years old. When I was a kid, I never dreamed that I was going to make it to watch the 250th, anniversary. I was like, I'll be lucky if I make it to, 62 so I can retire, and, but I mean, after all these years, I look at it and go, man, I get to celebrate this with everybody else. Ain't this cool? That's the way I'm looking at it. whether
When I
you
was
like it, yes or no or not, it is actually 250 years. So go home and pout if you want to, but it literally has been, well, on Saturday, 250 years. Nah. Be
well,
mad
you know,
at
I
us
remember
all you want to. I can't believe some of
I,
these clowns. Yeah, I'm not going to celebrate it. Okay. It's going to be the 4th of July, whether you like it or not.
that's right. That's right. You just go to your employer who's given you holiday pay and tell them, well, I'm not celebrating the 4th of July. You can take back your holiday pay because I don't believe in it. Right? I don't think there's many guys doing that.
Yeah, I don't want this. Well, it is on Saturday, but a lot of folks are getting Friday off for the 4th. But here comes Saturday, and well, I don't know, but you're still going to get paid for Friday.
That's
You
right.
didn't have to work. That means you can start drinking them, um, PBRs a little early.
Susie Q says fried chicken, strawberry pie, potato salad, and deviled eggs and
Oh,
watermelon.
hush,
Oh, Susie Q, where do you
hush,
live? I'm
hush,
heading your
hush.
way. Uh, can I get
Yeah,
in on
really,
that?
that fried chicken. Oh man,
I think Susie is a good cook. The way she talks all the time about making stuff.
I
Susie, you can
bet
come and
you.
cook.
Yeah, I
You
bet
can
you
come
her
cook at
fried
my house
chicken.
anytime you want. I got a nice big stove and lots of good pans. I bought the best of the best. And pots, pans, and fresh vegetables. I got a garden like you wouldn't believe. And, chickens that lay real eggs.
And I'll
So
chase down a chicken if you're going to do fried chicken.
that's right. There you go. I
We'll go to
love
the
potato
store and
salad.
get you a chicken, by golly.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, yeah, I love good potato salad. You just have a really nice potato salad and with the mustard,
Pimento.
mustard potato salad. Because there's a steak
Mm-hmm.
potato salad and there's a few other ones, but you got to have the egg in there and the mustard to make it really good.
Yep.
Yeah, and watermelon. Yeah, I think it all sounds real good. Strawberry pie. I like it. Strawberry pie. Oh yeah, I gotta have some mustard in that potato salad. Yeah. Anyway, super good stuff. Susie, you cook. I'll head over that way. Oh boy. Yeah.
My stomach's growling just thinking about it.
I know. I gotta cook some food myself, and
I'm
I
gonna
didn't
have to
really
go
eat much
raid
today, even
somebody's
so I'm
picnic.
even more hungry. I got home and I had some beans and rice and a little bit of chicken stuff that I had. Now I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking, that would be pretty good. Well, anyway, you are all right. Susie Q, thank you for sticking around. Lucky Stone, thank you for putting in the things and participating. And Witchy Moon, yes, she's the fireworks. Thank you for being here. Elderberry, thank you for joining us tonight. Beyond Truth, Nina, thank you for being here. Remember, go check Nina out on Beyond Truth because Beyond Truth is awesome. Love being on that show. We talk about a lot of interesting topics. It's growing like crazy. There'll be more shows with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Hey, he's going to be on pretty good. There are quite a lot now. As I hear through the grapevine, oh boy, people, I ain't going to spoil the surprise, but he's going to be having some really good stuff on there. Who else was in here? John Price. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been great. I know it's summertime, and a lot of you are going to be watching this after the show because, hey, if I wasn't doing the show, I would be outside in the garage working on things. I got some rabbit pens to build because my bunnies had babies, and I got lots of baby bunnies, black and white, white and gray, brown and white. Oh, I got some really pretty ones. So, I'll be starting to make some videos on all this
Inquiring
stuff.
minds want to know.
Yes, inquiring minds want to know, who doesn't love little animals? I got the little goats, and
But inquiring minds want to know, did you find the goat?
oh yes. Want to hear a funny story? Anyway, the goat ran off, looked everywhere, couldn't find the goat, gave up, did the show, got up the next morning, seen the goat a little bit, goat disappeared, found the goat, decided the heck with it, the goat will eventually come back, went to town, and on my way home from town, there's the goat alongside the road, about a quarter mile away. And so I jumped out of the Suburban, ran across the ditch, got up to the fence. The goat looks at me like, hi, and she says, I'm on the other side of the fence and you can't get me, until I jumped the fence. I got over the fence. I grabbed the rope because the goat was on a rope, and I got her and I dragged her through the fence and jumped in the vehicle, and I led her all the way back home. So she had a long walk, and the baby followed right along. The baby was happy as heck. But
so
needless
was she
to say,
headed back to the house or away from or just standing there?
no, she was just out by the road. I don't know what she was doing out there. She was just eating weeds, moseying her way along. You know how they do. They move a little bit and they graze a little bit. They move a little bit and they graze a little bit. And
she was just following along the fence.
Yep, that's about it. Following along the fence. And
so don't be like that goat, and just, even though there's some good weeds, don't just follow along the fence and not pay attention where you're at.
That's right. There's a lot out there. But anyway,
where you're at. It's Hansel and Gretel, oh, we're going to drop little crumbles along the way, and they never turned around to see the birds eating the crumbles. So, pay attention to where you're going.
Yep, exactly. Well, I mean, she might have come back eventually. I don't know. Whatever. I got her. It's all good. Now she's home. She likes to stay home. I don't know. Dog chased her, and next thing you know, off she goes. Oh, well.
Incidents happen,
Regine Hutchelson is in the house. Yeah. Thank you, Regine, for
we love you all, and we want to say thank you always for coming and sharing your time with us. It really means a lot to Robert and I. It really does. We don't get paid, and we're not trying to be. We do it because we love this, but we do it because we love to hang out with y'all, and we love to share the information. So, yeah, thank you, Regen.
Mm-hmm. And, yep. Happy birthday, America 250. Exactly. Hopefully you join us, check us out tomorrow or Saturday night. And don't forget to check Lucky out on his show with Grandpa Brian tomorrow. And then on Sunday, it's Beyond Truth with me and Nina and whatever guests we may have, or just us talking about stuff. So check us out over there. It's a new channel with lots of good stuff, Beyond Truth. If you ain't been over there, go check it out. Also, get on the Streamlabs, and you can even get yourself a nice big sticker with me on it. Ain't that nice? New logo stuff going on. It's good. It's all good, people. It's all good. Check us out. It's a lot of fun. And with that, we're going to go out. We're going to be safe with the fireworks. Don't blow your hands off. Don't hold an M80 and light it and say, I wonder what happens when it explodes, because it's like dynamite in your hands.
It hurts like a mother. Do not do it.
Yes.
I've had one blow up inches from my hand. Someone threw it on the merry-go-round in Samson, Alabama, and there was children riding the horses just above this cherry bomb, M80, and I picked it up and was throwing off the ride, and it just left my fingers like this and blew up, and my hand blew up like a baseball glove. Don't do it. Be careful.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah, it's maybe not so much. It's the percussion wave. That's even with these, bombs that go over. You may not get hit by one, directly, but it's the percussion wave that comes over and gets you later on. You know what I'm saying?
And it breaks all the windows and knocks stuff off of the front of buildings, and
Yeah, exactly. So with that, everybody go out and have a safe 4th of July. Celebrate whatever way you want. Remember, 250 years only comes around once every 250 years. And with that, everyone, remember to go out and most of all be the frequency you want to receive, everyone. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.